and welcome to part 2 of my thoughts on Star Wars. In this video I'll be commenting on Rogue One. If you're interested in hearing what I thought about The Force Awakens, click here. Right, Rogue One, the story. Let's just get right into it, shall we? We start off with this family who apparently live in the worst place in the universe. I mean, look at this miserable hole. The Empire turns up really far away for some reason. They've come to snatch the family up because the dad is actually the scientist working on the Death Star. It all goes a bit pear-shaped for no reason, really. Dad gets taken back, the wife gets shot, and the daughter gets rescued by some random. It isn't a great opening, some nice visuals and all, but I just don't care about anything yet. This scene's meant to kind of kickstart my engagement to the story, but just came off a bit weak, really. Next, we are introduced to Cassian Andor, who is a little bit more interesting. The scene is a bit tense, and our good guy rebel murders his contact to keep their conversation secret.
Calm down, calm down. We'll be alright.
Well, there's a shade of grey to the whole rebel thing. I like it. I wasn't sure if I was meant to trust this guy or not, which is a good thing. Now, if I've got this right, our main girl, Jyn Erso, her father managed to convince one of the Empire's pilots to sneak out a secret message. The pilot was told to find Jyn's guardian, Saw Gerrera, to deliver this message, which is a hologram which reveals there is a weakness in the Death Star, and that the plans are some other Imperial stronghold. Wait a fucking second. He snuck out a message explaining there were plans they had to steal to find the weak point? Why didn't he just sneak out the weak point plans to the pilot? He knew what the failsafe was, he designed the fucking thing. Looks like a flash animation anyway, he could have made it on his fucking lunch break. It's not exactly that complicated to even just explain what to do. He could have just said, "See this hole here? Chuck a bomb down it." All you would need are the coordinates. But no, he just states there is a weak point, then prefers his daughter and the rebels take on a military base and figure it out themselves. Thanks, Dad? So anyway, that's the plot of the first half of the film, but funnily enough, the half I prefer. The rebels are trying to find this message, and so Jyn begrudgingly helps them, who, by the way, has grown up to join the ranks of completely dull, fucking forgettable female lead characters in Star Wars. I mean, come on, twice in a row. How can they keep fucking this up? They made Princess Leia. She's one of the most badass, kick-ass, memorable female leads in, like, all of film history. It can't be that whatever. Again, nothing to do with the actress. I'm pretty sure she's good in other things, maybe, but in this... Joining our team is the comic relief character, who was actually quite funny.
Congratulations. You are being rescued. There are a lot of explosions for two people blending in.
Freeze! Right!
You're right. I should just wait on the ship.
I am taking them to imprison them in prison.
He's taking us to...
Quiet! And there's a fresh one if you mouth off again.
I like the idea of the droids in Star Wars all being the funny ones. Makes sense. Their grip on reality would be a little loose compared to ours. And thank God, by the way, because this film would be completely miserable without him. Also joining our little ragtag team is the blind Jedi Ip Man and his companion Baz? I was really worried about this guy because if this became a kung fu film, I would snap. Fucking snap. But it was alright. He isn't actually a Jedi Knight. He was just some sort of ex-guardian or something who's one with the Force, and his mate just wields around a BFG and grumbles about how he has to look after him all the time. How about that? Something new in a Star Wars film. I really like the idea behind these two, and I'll explain why at the end. But yeah, I could watch these two in their own sitcom. They eventually find Saw, played by Forrest Whitaker, who happens to be one of my favourite actors. He plays a wonderful character. He's like a super paranoid rebel extremist who would hentai your ass if he thought you were lying to him. Which is pretty much all the time. He's mad for it.
Caitlin, Esso. He told me to find you.
Poor Gully.
He was kinda intense, and his get-up was pure sci-fi fantasy. I loved that guy. Kinda disappointed he didn't run from that big explosion that killed him. Why didn't he run?
Come with us!
I will run no longer.
Could be arsed, I guess. So yeah, the Death Star turns up and does a wee mini-shot at the colony. I should have explained, while all this is going on, there appears to be a power struggle within the Empire between Orson Krennic and, Admiral Tarkin. You know that guy from the original? It's impressive, technically, and the scene is pretty good. He has a lot of presence for someone who isn't actually present. Maybe a bit too much, though. Comes across like a cartoon villain. I wouldn't mind so much if it was just a cameo, but he appears a lot. Let's hope they don't do it with any other characters. Back to our rebels. They have managed to track down her father to a planet. Wait, what? These guys are still with them?
Why?
Never mind. Turns out Cassian has been told to kill Jin's father without her knowing. But he doesn't because he's not actually a cold-hearted murderer, and that's about the biggest development we get out of him. It's a shame his character just doesn't really build to anything. So this goes pear-shaped as well, and Galen dies.
Papa, it's me.
Nah, still don't care. Meanwhile, in the Castle of Evil on planet Doom, Orson goes to visit a certain someone. Has Darth Vader put on weight here? Something about him just doesn't feel right. Yeah, he's up a neck size or something. But yeah, I quite like seeing him again. He was enjoyably corny.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
And we arrive at our final scene. The attack on Scarif? Starts off okay. Bit of a disguise scenario, bit of sneaking around. Actually, that's what I thought most of this film would be like some sort of heist film. But it quickly stretches out to an incredibly long shooter sequence. I'm not gonna lie, I was quite bored. We're also jumping between Jin and Cassian trying to get the plans out of the tower thing. The pilot is trying to do something, there's a space battle happening overhead, and then things just seem to get messier and messier. That ending multiplication effect we all learned about from episode 1. I'm not sure what it was about this ending that I just couldn't be arsed with. It was kind of like Saving Private Ryan, but that was good. Here's the difference. In that film we had spent the entire story with his team. We saw how they operated as a unit, we had close personal moments with all of them, and every death was really felt. The last fight feels sad and desperate as we see our comrades bite it in some really nasty ways. In Rogue One, however, I don't really know or care about any of them. They all just drop like flies and it's always death by explosion. Wait a minute, do any main characters die from blaster shots in Star Wars? Well, let me have a think. Well, actually, I guess if you're robotic, it could happen. And I suppose some background Jedi... Anyway, first Saw dies, and that was sad. Stupid, but still sad, because I liked him. Then Galen dies, which I suppose is sad, technically. Then the robot dies, which again sucks, because he was at least entertaining. The pilot dude gets blown up, Ip Man gets blown up, Baze gets blown up. Even this random pilot who had a few lines died. And then of course everyone basically dies, and it was just boring by that point. Maybe if like you thought a bunch of them were going to escape, and then their ship explodes and they all die, that would be more shocking. Then you'd be like, hopeful. But nah, this was just miserable and predictable. Jesus, if you combine all the major characters that die in the original trilogy, it comes to like around 8. 8 in 3 films. How about the action-packed prequels? Around 8 again. Sure, we could quibble over who constitutes as a major character, but undeniably 11 or 12 people die in this one film alone, and we barely care about them because they're paper thin. They just die. And I ask you, was it really necessary for a Star Wars film? The light-hearted sci-fi fantasy romps that they are? This film was miserable. And you know, as per, there's a bunch of technical things that annoyed me throughout. Why did the pilots have to fly through this ring to get to the surface? Was there really a barrier or shield around the entire planet? A planet? Why does Star Wars just not do parachutes? And what the fuck was up with the psychic octopus? Don't think I forgot about that. Oh, and the oh-so-neat connection with the original New Hope film. Really? We see Leia piss off with the plans while Vader's gunning for them. He catches up to her in the New Hope and she acts all dumb about it.
Darth Vader, only you could be so bold.
The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a
Didn't
diplomat...
act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to this ship from rebel spies. I know, because I was there. I saw your guys running about with them, and I was scary. I was like cutting them up and down the corridor. It was sick.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, really, I did. Finally, the audience sees why I'm so feared by you rebels. One guy was up on the ceiling, I'm just blocking shots with my hand.
I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I saw you leave. We were beating your ass. I looked out the window at your creepy CGI fucking face, and you fucked off at light speed. We've been chasing you ever since. This all just happened 5 minutes ago. You are lying.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission.
Fuck off. Sick of the sight of you. Films perfectly sync up my shiny black ass they do.
That was shite. Overall, though, I actually liked this film more than The Force Awakens. Probably because it balanced the humor a bit better. We did go from wacky comedy to something that almost made me want to kill myself. I think I also liked it because I had no preconceptions. This is why I think Guardians of the Galaxy works. No one had really built it up in their heads of what it should be, and that was the same for this in my opinion. But a lot of people still hated it as well because it didn't feel exactly like the other films. At this point, I'd hate to be in charge of this series. I wouldn't have a clue what direction to take it. So, is Star Wars dead? Nah. And maybe just because of this spin-off series. They now have an avenue in which to experiment. I was going to bring up these two again, by the way, because... let me explain. When I was but a young, ancient being, I watched Star Wars and viewed it as a fantasy in space. Instead of knights, you had Jedi. Instead of dragons, you had aliens. And instead of witches and warlocks, you had Sith. The Force is magic, not fucking midichlorians. You got that, George? So as I grew up, I imagined my own stories of Sith riding winged aliens and space cowboys fighting droid pilots and gods of the Force, etc. The prequels did everything on a big scale but didn't really expand on anything. And The Force Awakens was even worse. Nothing fresh at all. But this, however, Rogue One, did tickle me a wee bit. It had fantasy imagery, evil hideouts, ancient temples, and weird new aliens. even if it was a bit unnecessary. And there were shades of grey everywhere, morally ambiguous rebel missions, a more human element in the Empire, extremist factions, and Force-sensitive warriors who aren't actually Jedi. He used a gun, for fuck's sake. And he didn't jump around or deflect the blaster shots at the end, he chanted and put his faith in the Force to guide him. It felt genuinely magical. Gave me a twinge of what Star Wars is really about for me. So maybe there's life in the old girl yet. I'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's all from me. Next I'll be looking over the Beauty and the Beast remake. Really looking forward to that one. Yeah, especially because the singing looked really good.